This podcast is intended for mature audiences only and may contain content that could be triggering. Please listen with discretion. Welcome to Just One Person, a podcast where I dedicate each season sharing a remarkable true story. Together, we're going to discover how just one person can shape us, inspire hope, and sometimes even save us. I'm your host, Lisa Bloom. The season's story begins in the fall of 2022 when I was searching for a new hairstylist. I got Stephanie's number from a close friend, sent her a quick text, and she responded instantly with, "Of course, beautiful. I would love to cut your hair." That one message gave me a glimpse into who Stephanie is. She's kind, generous, and welcoming. And over the next 3 years, Stephanie and I became very close friends, openly sharing stories about our parents, relationships, and interestingly, religion. I was consistently surprised by the memories Stephanie would share with me about her childhood and adulthood. Her stories were heart-wrenching, and yet her demeanor and spirit were always upbeat and positive. Then in the fall of 2023, I walked into Stephanie's salon expecting a normal appointment, but she had a sad and serious look that wasn't familiar. What happened next would unfold into a story of resilience and the extraordinary strength of a remarkable woman. Stephanie's life was forever changed by the love of two people, each simply one person who inspired hope and ultimately saved her. This is Stephanie's story, and it starts with this voicemail.
Stephanie, it's bad, and I hate to leave you a voicemail on this, but I want you to realize the importance of the call.
I am the preacher's daughter, an empty shell of what's been lost.
I was born a Texan, born in Houston, Texas. I'm pretty sure we lived in a suburb outside of Houston for like the first 2 years. Yeah, and then we moved shortly after that to Hull, Texas, which I'm sure everyone's heard of.
Yeah,
it is currently Texas, where one of the biggest sinkholes are that made the national news years ago. So huge. It's a lake now, I'm pretty sure. But I haven't actually done the research to know if it's the largest sinkhole.
Got you.
I do remember, of course, I was a kid that was always interested and curious in things. I really felt like at one point I was probably a daddy's girl almost, he really genuinely just doted over me when I was young. I remember going to the bank and my dad had a little office and I sat on Santa's lap. So
what did your mom do during that time?
That's what I can't remember. Because like I said, she was a nurse by trade. But once we moved to Hull, Texas, where, all the relatives were, I don't know if she was working or not. I knew my dad worked at the bank, but I don't know if my mom was working. I cannot remember.
She was an RN, right?
Yeah. She might have been a stay-at-home mom. I'm not sure.
Interesting. Stephanie has taught me that trauma impacts our memories, and we often use our emotions over the facts. I read the book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it explains that when it comes to trauma, we remember the emotions of feeling fear and powerlessness instead of remembering the painful facts of what took place. To help Stephanie remember her trauma timeline, we, along with our partners, decided to take a trip to Texas and Louisiana. We visited many of the 11 places where she lived between the ages of 1 and 17. Our group, now known as the Podcats, hit the back roads with equipment in tow. Stephanie's bravery was incredible. It was an emotional journey filled with tears and laughter by each of us. And by the end of those 4 days, we knew our friendship was cemented in stone.
My mom is still, this is something I'm still working on, actually. My mom is still a big question mark in my life, but I don't remember her loving like my dad loved me. I mean, even all my old pictures, it's like my dad's on the bed with my Easter basket, my dad's with my Christmas and, whatever I have. We didn't have costumes that weren't homemade. So I ended up having the foil arms. And I just remember thinking I was the coolest thing ever, like standing there in my big foil armed Superwoman costume. And we were out in the country. I mean, so it was just different being raised out in the country. I mean, so I did get spanked as a normal Southern child did. Don't fault my parents for that at the time because they were normal pick a switch parents at that point. And
wait, let's pause for a minute for our listeners. What does it mean to pick a switch?
Oh my goodness. So you go out to a bush in the front of your yard and you literally find your own stick to pull off of that bush to get spanked with.
Wow.
It's the worst thing possible. It's like a walk down death lane, basically.
Yeah.
Like you're walking to pick your own beating, basically.
It's true. I had a Southern mama, so I know what you're talking about. But those who don't have a Southern background, it is always a shocker when I share that.
Yeah.
It's like, what? That's child abuse. And it's like, well, that's
back then, that's all they knew.
Yeah.
I will be honest. They weren't doing it to be abusive or anything. It was just the way of disciplining your child in the South at that point in the country. And, this was years ago. So we've learned a lot, thank goodness.
And your mama's parents, how did they fall into play in your life?
Well, my mom's mom is the one that we live closest to, distance-wise. And then, like, my cousins were actually closer in age with us, and they lived nearby, too, by her. And so with her, she was the kind of grandma that we just all get dropped off at her house on the weekends and just, rule the forest. And she was also deaf. And so
100%.
Well, I mean, I thought it was 100%, but obviously she could hear some because we could talk to her. But you could hear her hearing aids squealing all the time because she would, kind of tune us out, like she could like keep her silencer on and we just hear her hearing aids squealing and she wouldn't. So I think there were like 7, 8, 9 of us total.
Okay. Yeah.
Not all of us would be there at the same time, but most of the time it was 6 to 7 of us. We had a blast out there. We had this place, we called it the 100-Acre Woods, although it was not. And then my cousin, the one that was like 6 months-ish older than I was, they went to the Baptist church, but it wasn't like the type of Baptist church that's like the wild ones. Theirs was also very, very calm. And so we went to like the little Bible study for kids. And I remember we got to make ceramic cats and paint them one time. And I just was like, this is so cool. Like, my parents were, it's got all kinds of names. They were non-denominational, charismatic, evangelical, fundamentalist, that kind of category. So they believed in, of course, the Trinity, salvation, things like that. But they also believed in like speaking in tongues. They, were the type that were dancing all over the church, things like that.
Yeah. Did you have a traditional hymns, music?
We had more of we called it praise and worship. Mm-hmm. And those were like, you could have a band, backing you up. It was just like an emotional upheaval, basically, like of people just started feeling, I think, all kinds of things. And these praise and worship services like would just go on and on sometimes. Sometimes the pastor would start preaching and the music would still be playing behind him. My dad's parents' church, my Mimi and Pop, they went to this tiny Methodist church in Saratoga, Texas, which once again, I'm sure we've all heard of. And I think they had maybe 5 people in their congregation and they were all on the brink of, being, in the ground, let's be honest. It was an old church. But I just loved it. Oh my gosh. It was, maybe a 30-minute service. We'd have cake afterwards. These little old people were just so sweet. And so it was like the most calm thing. And I always remember thinking like, oh, I just love this so much. It's so calm and peaceful. How did my dad end up from that to like this, crazy, wild evangelical thing? So
Typical childhood. When we were on our travels in Texas, the stop that sticks out the most for me was when we went to Mimi and Pop's house. Stephanie was so happy when we pulled up to their house.
This driveway, go ahead and pull in. None of this existed, you guys. This property was clear. There was like a beautiful sun porch on the front. The garage is right there. Sun porch is on the right. I had my own bedroom. My Mimi, though, she was fucking feisty, you guys. She just made me feel very loved. There was a pond, trees. He had a greenhouse. Oh my God, you guys, he had gardens. Aww. I spent a lot of time with him. You know, it was still great to like go out there because it was so far out, but there was a sadness realizing it's like the house didn't exist. It just disappeared.
Stephanie's parents began building their family on the belief that discipline was used as a sign of love, and the Bible was their roadmap for how to live a godly life and to raise their children to also be godly.
So I'd have been about 7 years old. They probably sat us down and tried to explain it in the best way they knew how, but I don't remember that at all.
Okay.
It's like I remember being in Texas and then I remember being in Louisiana and my dad having a church. I just felt immediate stress. And so, yeah, we moved to Homer, Louisiana, and that was my dad's first church. And my sister, brother, and I officially became PKs, which are preacher's kids, as soon as my dad was a pastor, where it did feel performative, where we had to be good children that were well behaved and sat on the front row and wanted to praise God more than anyone else. You know, I mean, it was a lot of pressure. I, first of all, hated living in Louisiana. I missed our life in Texas because that is where our family was and where I felt that love and that safety. Like, our lives became different. I started feeling the stress of their pastor life. You could tell when things weren't going quite well in the church, or who knows, they probably had financial problems. I'm sure there was a whole plethora of things that were adding up to the stress they were feeling outside of just the church. I'm sure there were other things, but as a child, I could feel that. I could feel that they weren't that happy any longer. I could feel that they were stressed. My dad was becoming, I guess, more of a Christian as time went by, but yeah, it just, I don't know, it just changed things. It changed our family dynamic, and I really just did not like being there either.
If you could have a conversation with him and ask him a question about that time, like when he became a minister and you felt the stress in that first year or 2, 3 years, what would you ask him?
I would just want to know, like, what was the switch for him? Like, why did we go from being normal to all of a sudden he just didn't feel like the same dad anymore? Like, what happened in that time frame that changed everything?
What do you think he would say?
I think he would tell me about his calling from God.
You do?
I do. My Mimi and my Pop, they were my person. Like, they were my people. And I dearly love them still with all my heart, even though they're gone. They helped me understand what love is.
This season on Just One Person,
I ended up in a room. He said, "Don't move." Complete silent treatment. Made me hold a pistol to my head. Kept telling me to pull the trigger. Told me to kill myself over and over again. I had a client in the chair. I was weeping and then trying to gather myself together enough to deal with what I just heard. And I just had to swallow so hard and just get myself together to calm down enough to have this conversation, because I knew he was a ticking time bomb.
if you or someone you know is affected by abuse or is in need of support, resources are available, and we have them listed in the episode notes. Or you can call the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline. It's 1-800-4A-CHILD, available 24/7. You can also text 4HOPE to 741-741. We also have resources listed on our website at www.justonepersonpodcast.com. Listen to Just One Person on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. Visit justonepersonpodcast.com for more information. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with a friend and follow us on Instagram at Just One Person Podcast. Just One Person is produced by J1P Productions, executive produced by me, Lisa Bloom, lead producer and story editor, Carrie Caulfield, and our sound designers, Amita Ganatra and Alejandro Ramirez. A special thanks to voice actor Scott McKinley, portraying Stephanie's dad. Our heartfelt thank you to Stephanie's partner, Melissa Weaver, and my wife, Julie Koleski, for being a part of the Podcats team. Also to Stephanie's 3 close friends, Krista, Annalisa, and Bex, for participating in this series. Music for this podcast is from Epidemic Sound and Soundstripe. Original music recorded and performed by our first season's guest, Stephanie Michelle and the Michelle Band.